Hello, welcome to Iggy's Toy Parade and Soldier Review. This is your host, Iggy. Yay. Thank you for that. Well, guys, today we're going to take a look at something that I purchased from Classic Toy Soldiers. And what we see here is several items that I purchased from them last week. One is a Panther or better known as the Panther, or Panther. Not sure how you say it in German. And it features the tank commander popped out of the hatch there. And it is in an early war paint scheme. By the time that Panther showed up in 1943, the Germans were already painting their vehicles in camouflage schemes. Now, the Panther had a lot of problems when it first was introduced. It went onto the drawing boards in 1942, and by 1943, they had a completed vehicle that was ready for combat, or so they thought, and they discovered rather rudely, I guess, that was not the case. At the Battle of Kursk, the Panthers were seen for the first time, and they were breaking down before they could even get to the front line of action. They had defective gearboxes and drivetrain, and so they would constantly break down. Also, a deficiency of the Panther was that it had relatively thin side armor and rear armor. One of the tactics they used to address that was to have a Panzer IV on either side to protect their flanks so that they couldn't be attacked from the rear. I think if I was going to prison, I would want a couple of Panzer IVs to protect my rear, but that's probably another story. And I hope I don't ever go to prison. God. Ugh. Anyway, what was I even saying before I got off on... I turned into James Cagney all of a sudden. I'm not going to jail, copper. Whatever. Okay. So they fixed those problems, and then the Panther became one of the finest tanks of World War II. It featured a 7.5 centimeter main gun, so it could go toe-to-toe with anything the Allies had. And it was a very good tank. One of the better tanks developed by the Germans. Now, these figures that you see are a combination of two different manufacturers. One is Marx, and these are figures that are recast from old Marx molds. Fortunately, when Marx went out of business, a lot of their molds were saved from destruction, and so we're able to still thankfully get things. And then the other is Airfix, and the two of them came in this package here. It had a header card that you see here, and when I first got it, because of the punch out, and I was holding it like this, I thought at first glance he was wearing a sombrero. I don't know why I thought that. And I'm like, what? Oh, well, that's a punch out. But it came in a plastic header bag. This is the bag it came in. And it features Airfix and Marx. So which ones are Airfix and which ones are Marx? Well, Airfix has the better figures, and you can tell quite easily between the two. For instance, These two figures that you see here that I'm close up on now are Airfix, and these two over here are Marx. You'll notice that instead of a K98 or a 98K rifle like he's got, they've got an M41. And you can tell that by the magazine see the magazine at the bottom of the rifle there? I don't know if you can see that because it keeps blurring out. For some reason, my automatic focus isn't very automatic. At any rate, you can see that the Airfix mold is much more robust and accurate, if you will. Now, these Germans, of course, are, despite Airfix doing a really good job with them, they all look like Hollywood Germans. And so they look like Germans from like 1940. So if you're using them for D-Day or Cannes or Hurtgen Forest or whatever, these probably wouldn't work too well for you. Now another Marx figure is this one here. It's the fellow, he's got an MG42 in his lap. And of course, I suppose you could use him as a fellow taking a nap. But I suspect that he's not napping, unless it's permanently napping. And it comes with an Airfix machine gun team, which you see here. See, well, this guy should be up here. I'm sorry. Same thing with this one. Here we are. Those are Airfix figures. Then this one here is an Airfix figure, and the one behind it is a Marx figure. You see that? Again, he's got the strange... I'm guessing they meant it to be an M41, because it sure is not a Mauser 98K, that's for certain. This figure, of course, is the better of the two. The Marx figures don't hold up very well next to Airfix. To give you another example of that, here's the Marx rifleman, again with the strange rifle. And then here he is over here in the Airfix. Look at the superiority of the Airfix figure. It's quite pronounced. I'm not certain why CTS decided to mix the two. I would prefer just to have more of the Airfix figures than the Marx figures. The only reason I would want the Marx figures is if I was trying to complete a battleground playset. Over the years, a lot of pieces of your playset ended up missing. And fortunately, today you can get gaps in your collection filled because they're recasting many of the old molds. In a next video, I'm going to be showing you some of those recasts. This tank is also by CTS. It has no wheels on the bottom. One problem with it is the barrel is kind of saggy. And it doesn't feel stiff. And I want to show you the bottom. You see here it has no wheels. It does say CTS on the bottom here. And this would be a fine addition to any sort of army set that you'd like to compile or collect. I recommend it. You can paint it if you want to make it look more like a Panther tank from the period. This is my favorite pose. I think that's everyone's favorite pose. And he's got the stick grenade. You know, one thing they don't really show in many movies, I think they're starting to do it now. Like Generation War, I think shows them where they they unscrew the bottom of the stick grenade and they pull a little cord which ignites the fuse, and then they throw the hand grenade. In the past, they would just show a German throwing the hand grenade without doing that. And if he did that, nothing would explode because he didn't ignite the fuse. But, you know, the movies back in the day were not necessarily too accurate. Now, there's also a Marx figure here that's kind of, you can see here, I'm guessing this is supposed to be an MP40, but you can notice immediately that the magazine is way too far forward. It should be about where his hand is. And then this one back here is he holding a Thompson machine gun? What's he doing here? Who knows? Marx, their sculptors, I don't think, referred to any reference materials when they made their figures for the playset. Okay, guys, would you like to see a illustration of the Panther? I think I have one here that I can share with you. I didn't mark the page, unfortunately, so I'm going to have to bumble about here. Yeah, machine guns. Yeah, vehicles. Here we go. No? No? Here we are. Okay, I found it. And you see the camouflage schemes. I noticed the Soviet tanks didn't really utilize camouflage either. The Soviet tanks would always have, I guess, slogans or something painted on the side of the turret. But basically, the tanks were left in an OD green as far as the pictures I've seen of them. This is a monster of a tank. It weighed 50 tons. And I think over here's one of the variants where they converted into a tank killer, a Jag Panther, which is a hunter panther. Here it is being constructed. So that's what they would look like in their camouflage scheme. So you could get a reference book and perhaps paint this yourself so that it doesn't look like an early war vehicle, because they weren't around in the early part of the war. These were a reaction to the Soviets' T-34. And some of the improvements they made is they made a much wider track than the Panzer IV had. So it gave it more traction, if you will, in the muddy. The Russian front was pretty muddy, and they didn't have a lot of roads. The Germans were shocked at how few roads there were in Russia. You know, they would occupy a Russian village or Ukrainian village and go, "Where's the main road to Moscow?" And they would point at some rutted dirt path. And the Germans are like, "What?" But the Russians didn't have a lot of money for making projects like that. It costs a lot of money for building roads. Still does, for that matter. All right, guys, that's all I got for you this time. You'll notice that this tank commander fits very snugly in there. I'd like to know how he's going to get into that tank. His shoulders are wider than the hatch. It reminds me of a time when we were out in the field and I was on guard duty and it was pitch black out. I literally could not see my hand if I put it in front of my face. And the flashlight I had was practically useless. All it did was reveal my location, and I couldn't see anything with it. Anyway, I heard strange sounds, and I started to get suspicious. And I kept hearing them. This went on for hours, by the way. From the time I first started to the end of my shift is how long it took. But I got up on the tank, and then it kept getting closer, and I couldn't see anything. So I got inside the tank, and it turned out it was a lieutenant that he was trying to surprise me because he thought it would be funny. I almost shot him. The reason I did not shoot him is I fell through the hatch. Now, this guy isn't going to do that, so the lieutenant would have been perfectly safe. But the only thing that saved that lieutenant's life is I couldn't, as I was reaching for my 45, and by the way, I had my 45 loaded even though we're not supposed to. They didn't want us to have a loaded 45, I guess for this very reason. I was reaching for that, and that's when I fell through the hatch. And he just thought it was the most hilarious thing. I was really mad because I don't want that on my conscience of shooting an officer. I don't want that on my record either. I would need 2 tanks to protect my rear. Anyway, I think that officer got chaptered out of the Army for being overweight. He was rather big. They used to call him Sugar Bear, and he was pretty heavy. Anyway, that's all I got for you. This is a mixture of Marx and Airfix, which is available from a lot of different hobby stores. It's produced by Classic Toy Soldier. 24 figures, and it's a mixture. That looks weird, like he is wearing a sombrero. He's pretty decorated. He's got a wound badge, and an Iron Cross, and a salt badge. He's got the Iron Cross, first and second class. Anyway, what's nice is on the back of that, you can see some of the things that you can order from Classic Toy Soldier. It's blurring out again. Gosh darn it. And there's a lot of different things that are available that would be nice additions to your collection. Okay, guys, I want to thank you for getting Iggy with it. Thank you for joining the Iggy Army. And I appreciate your likes and comments and subscriptions. You guys are awesome. And I'll have another video for you tomorrow. I had my hours cut at work, so I'm off all this week. And that's why I've been producing a lot of videos. Okay, guys, that's all I've got for you. Let's go to Woolie's Diner counter, and since the doctor said I can't have any, I'm going to have a hamburger. I don't know what you guys are going to do, but I want a hamburger. And that's all I got for you. So I should probably just say goodbye.